Hey, just a moment. Just we're waiting on everyone to come in. Can you hear me?
Dude, you in the Matrix. Hello.
Hello.
Um,
I can't really hear you, Rashad. You got to make us moderators.
You in the Matrix.
I am?
said I'm in the
No, Rashad.
He's got like a
Matrix.
monkey voice or like a Minnie
He's like,
Mouse voice, too.
hello. You sound like an old man, Rashad.
There is definitely an old man in that cat. I've talked to him. There's definitely an old man in there. Oh, let me bring my phone outside.
No, we can't hear you.
Well, you can't hear Rashad, right?
Yeah.
No, we all can't hear him.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming, Adam. How are you?
I'm good. What's up?
Well, I've been enjoying staying regular because it always makes me feel like I'm building something. I never know what I'm building, but when I can stay consistent, I know it helps it grow. So I've been enjoying that part of life and tracking with Gina and Rashad to be this like queen of hearts and just recognizing when women come in and be like, okay, my contract's done, I'm done. Like that energy of just being like done. And I've been reframing it throughout the day today. Like, I do think some of the contracts we've lived are over, but I don't think that means it's done with all contracts. I think like we have to end the kind of contracts the way we were doing it. And certain people are going to be in your life. You have kids with them, this and that. So you're going to make a new contract and kind of learn to use what you learned from the last contract and do it different and not take the stuff that doesn't work. So that's been the theme of my day. So I'm not sure if that makes
Ooh,
any sense.
like contracts, like work contracts or like
Well,
personal?
like even in relationships, like sometimes people will feel like they kind of meet a person and they have work to do or some kind of way that they're going to have an experience with them. And then when it gets hard or you feel like it's done, you kind of want to tap out. But when you have kids, you really can't tap out. And even in life, because we're also interconnected, we truly can't tap out. We have to really rewrite the contract to be more fair and to see it in a different way and be able to change with it and not just like kind of quit on it. But I mean, I'm not sure if I was saying what's true for everybody, but that's what I heard myself saying today when people were wanting to kind of just end contracts. I'm like, okay, you can end what you've been living, but as long as there's little kids involved, you can't really end that part.
Yeah, that's very King of Diamond-ish. Like,
How so?
I was like, work contracts? Like, oh, you're talking about relationships.
Yeah, I'm talking about relationships. Yeah, everything's, but in my world is the king of diamonds. Relationships are everything because, I'm a therapist, and I think of the relationships as the gold of your life. The places where you can be revealed and know yourself and be yourself. There's no
Mm-hmm.
better places in life. So I
Yeah.
guess that's my king of diamonds value coming through. But yeah, I don't know. I guess the whole idea of just like breaking contracts recently, it's been really clear to me that like nothing goes away. You just kind of like accept it differently and bring it with you in a different way or let it be compost. But you can't just like cut yourself off from anything because everything's kind of part of you. We're all connected.
Right. Exactly. And that's how you learn and grow. So some contracts are best kept at a distance, though. But, but
Nice.
some
Okay.
can flourish from it. That's great.
Yeah, I definitely agree with distance, and especially when you can't make boundaries, and everybody should be able to, do it the best way for them. I agree.
Hmm.
I agree with you. For sure. So what's going on in your world? You doing lots of readings? You're flying a lot? What are you doing?
No readings. I've been swamped with work. I am like, it's just taking me a long time to really start my business and really start my YouTube channel. So
Hmm.
sure that I have some time to be able to work on it. So, but it's coming by the end before the end of the year. I was really trying to have it ready by the spring equinox, but just work has been so busy, and I have a lot of family obligations that I have to take care of. So yeah, that's pretty much it. What about you? How's work been going in family?
Uh, Things are going pretty well. I'm dreaming in some, regular people who are going to work with the cards and the human design stuff out of the practice. I went and played cards with a bunch of ladies, like a mother's luncheon, and we played like these kind of cards I like to play, like vulnerability cards, like heart cards, where playing cards includes questions around vulnerability and what you feel, and it activates like a real heart connector in the cards. So that was really fun, and the women really enjoyed it, so I sense that they'll do more of it. I'm noticing that I just love to create stuff that helps people feel like they open up. So in the way that like a capitalist is supposed to be banking money, I'm not the banker, but I definitely am the creator, and I love to watch people flourish. So I'm going to still be a gardener. I think I'm more of a gardener than a business person. But I did hear something that I really dug. I heard that my business is my spiritual partner. And I really dug that because I put so much energy into the things that I grow that are in business types of awarenesses. And it is a partner for me. It's definitely a place where I get to express myself and bring forth my ideas. So I really dug that concept that your business could be a spiritual partner for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm I'm so I feel like for me, I have a grand square in my birth chart. So for me, I've always had this pressure of really trying to develop this while getting my skill set down in astrology and then developing it into a business. So partnerships for me and really anything outside of my main goal, it's just been kind of like, I don't know. It's not a distraction, but it's just I am so focused on, and it's annoyingly like I can't stop thinking about it that I have to like do this on my own kind of thing. So it's this kind of goal that I've always had for a while now, maybe like 10 years now, and now even more so. It's just becoming a thing that I'm like obsessed about that I can't stop thinking that I needed to develop and create. So I get what you're saying, that it is like your spiritual like a partner, and also like tapping into your spirituality, right? Being able to connect
Yeah.
to your
Yeah.
business. and it pouring back into you. So I definitely see that with astrology and helping people, that it does kind of, give you, like, you feel rejuvenated from it, right?
Yeah, I mean, my
So
work has always been with like families or people in the hospitals or rehabs and things. So when I opened up the center, it was so spiritual. Growing with the Seasons, when that place opened in 2010, it was like I was having dreams, and it was called Growing with the Seasons, the sheltering tree to inspire growth within. It was had all these, and like so much was coming with it. Like it was a calling of a vision. So it was so spiritual because yeah, I wanted to make a place, and I was had a part-time practice, two places, full-time job. Like I needed to kind of land somewhere. But when it came through, I was like, oh wow, so this is where I could grow a lot of the ideas. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is that you also have like a vision that's come with you and a place that you'd like to grow the ideas of what you think could be helpful.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the Queen of Hearts, what is that? The title.
Oh, Gina and I were just talking, and that's what we said. Like, cause she's like Queen of Hearts. That's like Big Mama energy. So I was like, oh, that's funny. So it was just like a playful way to say Queen of Hearts week. I mean, I have twin boys that are Queen of Hearts, so I don't really know girl queens. I know a couple of girl queens, but not a lot of girl Queen of Hearts. I know a lot more Queen of Clubs and a few Queen of Spades and several Queen of Diamonds, but they're all men mostly. The Queen of Diamonds I know, except for two. So I would say for me, when I think of the queens in general, there's a certain kind of strength that they have in their ability to stay wise if they play their stuff on the high side because they're in the queen, but there's also a way that they can be queenie, like do what I want, like a little bit like that. So I don't know if people are being a little bit more I want what I want, because I've heard off with their heads for the Queen of Hearts and silliness like that. So I'm not sure what others would say. What do you think? What do you notice?
Well, the Queen of Hearts will probably would match the title of being what you were saying, Queenie. Kind of, they can be self-absorbed, I guess. Probably compared to the other two queens, the Queen of Diamonds and the Queen of Clubs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The Queen of Spades is different, but the Queen of Diamonds and the Queen of Clubs are probably similar in their nature, in that they're also kind of like mirrors as well, mirroring back to how you are as and what you give out, the energy. Um, and also the queen. Yeah, I would say all the queens. I'm not sure about the Queen of Hearts, but I definitely get that from the other three queens. You would probably have more experience with the Queen of Hearts. I do have a brother, and I do, and also a friend, and they're both also very not really the nurturing types that we would think that that's what the Queen of Hearts is, because it's. So I do see that with them. Do you see that with your sons? Are they emotional and very much?
No, they're pretty yeah, I wouldn't say that. I mean, like, you can tap into it at the right time and place, but I wouldn't say they're like emotionally attuned to the other. Plus, they're Leos. They're like five house of Leos, Queen of Hearts. So it's pretty much a big, loud, like, what about me kind of show.
Hmm.
So they don't necessarily, but I will say they have an emotional intelligence with their generation, that they are kind of keen to things, and they don't like play you out too hard. They're not too manipulative. They're pretty transparent, but they do play their card. They're twins, so they've definitely used themselves to be mirrors and to play off stuff. It's kind of fascinating. But I would say that they're so curious to know themselves even more than they are to know others.
Yeah,
Like they
interesting.
really want to understand how they are.
How old are they?
19.
So they drive.
Oh
Do they?
yeah, they do everything. Yeah,
Do
they're gone. They're in college.
they are they very particular about the way they drive in their car?
Oh yeah, they fight over that kind of stuff. And one of them drives really fast. They have two different cars. They both want the same car that they can't have. Like they're fighting over. They're like, so yeah, there's a little bit. If they could pick like really cool cars when they were dreaming cars before they found out like what the financial like ticket was, they were dreaming like really like nice rides. You know.
Hmm.
Why is that something that is of a common?
Yeah, that's a quirk with them. And they're are they OCD about their car? Like having it very clean, very meticulous?
That's so funny because no. And I think they thought they would be because they forever gave me grief for like, my wrappers in the car or fruit rings, my banana, whatever, and they'd be like, oh my God, this is horrible. I would never do this. And I go in their cars. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, boys, but this is not what you thought. What happened here? So
That,
no, I'm not seeing that. But I mean, they are 19, so who knows, right?
yeah. Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And what's that song?
Oh, they're Leos. Yeah, July
I still
29th.
see. Yeah, I mean, I think there's still the emotional part. So you said they're more kind of selfish in which ways, as far as like the leader, you said more like mean, or they're all kind of
No, I don't
self.
think they're mean. They're very, no, I mean, I should be
Not mean,
careful.
but
They're not mean.
more.
They're very well received and very compassionate, but they're not like those overgiver, let me go help that poor lady kind of people. Do you know, like if somebody asks them to help, okay, but they're not going to look to help you. They're not like tuned in like that, like, oh, let me, they don't meet it like that. They kind of like, if you ask me, but they're projectors too. So you have to ask them for anything. They won't just do
But they're emotionally intelligent.
it. I experience them that way. I mean, they're pretty articulate. They know the boundaries, what they need to say. They both study kind of psychology in a way. They're movie makers. They're studying film, and they both always like psychology because I've been talking about that shit forever. So they're pretty aware. But who knows what they'll do? Who knows how they'll play their card with their film stories and what they'll show? But we'll see. But I would say,
That's
go ahead,
still a
Rashad.
part. No, I was gonna say that's still a part of the emotional point, because in order to, I think, to be into psychology, you have to care about the emotions of other, like, of other people, and the emotional well-being. So it's like, and it's Neptune, Neptune. So that's kind of like, I would say that end up in psychology or some type of mental health field where they're showing empathy or sympathy to other people, especially going into the psychology field. But you say the main, with the first priority or what they want to do is going to film.
Yeah, they do want to go into film. I sometimes wonder if it's because I always was like, you guys are going to make movies some days because you're just watching movies all the time. So I'm not sure how they developed the idea, but they really, really like looking at characters and looking at how people work and stuff like that and getting good ideas. So honestly, I don't know if I know them the way the world would know them. You know how, like, when you're a family with somebody or play a role out with somebody, you only really know them in the way that they get reflected in your experience. So even saying anything about them, it's limited because I only have a mom's eye view, and I have projections and I have ideas, so they're just, they're in it, and they definitely have an incredible reputation with the people that have known them. Everywhere that they've gone, they've left an impression of people just honoring them as like people who could get along with anybody and be fair and be fun and just lighthearted. So they're seemingly moving themselves so far into good grace. So that's all I can really say about them. But tell us about the Queen of Hearts week for you, Rashad. What do you think it would mean to have a Queen of Hearts week in our life?
I look at the weeks as not as much as I think foreshadows and just things and topics that kind of come up. For me, I have to go back to the time I had my cleaning space week, just being emotionally responsible. Maybe for other people, being emotionally sympathetic. It definitely is Neptune, Neptune. So there's a sense of isolation and dealing with your own emotions, and just queens overall are just all queens like take this emotional responsibility. You know, I almost felt like a parent this week. I can't say that my student he had like an epiphany. Like he's the five of clubs, right? And he has a nine of spades and Pluto and the ace of spades. Um, and there was this epiphany around self love, you know, um, where I can tell that he, like it's like you're isolated. You know, you never know who you are until you lock into a room by yourself. Kind of like you said, like but sometimes we aren't who we project to be to the outside world. Like who are you, kind of like by yourself in isolation. You know, what are the subconscious things that you kind of programmed about yourself emotionally. So he had like this epiphany, you know, of self love, and it's kind of funny because I've been talking to him about it for a long time and reflecting and asking him questions that make him reflect around taking responsibility for himself, right? Because he's a natural leader, everyone loves him, but sometimes he takes that as that people really love him, you know, and have the best for him, when they really don't, you know, even like in his relationships, he was in a relationship and he was, you know, about to die over this relationship, and then there was another girl that was there. I was like, well, you're like at a time age or time frame where honestly none of this is gonna matter. You know, like you should be getting to know yourself. You know, getting to know things that you like and love because it's gonna be hard to trying to save everybody else. You know, he kind of got into this situation where he's always trying to save or help the girl or the other person that he's with in the relationship. You know.
Funny.
Um,
That's so funny that you're coaching somebody on that, Rashad. That's awesome.
I know, right? I know, yeah, it's funny. I'm up there thinking like, wow, this kid. I'm coaching him, but I would barely have that together myself. But so
No, but
he's
that's how we
trying to.
learn. That's how we learn is by that way, by talking with others. I mean, that's the reflection that you get to grow smarter in. So I don't think it's like you don't have a right to teach it. It's beautiful that you're inspiring somebody to recognize that sooner than later. I'm not funny, like making
Oh
funny,
no, no,
like
you're
you. How
fine.
dare you? Yeah.
No. I didn't think you were saying it. I just that's the way I was reflecting myself. To be honest, I was like, because he's at the age, and I'm looking at him. He's like uh, maybe 5 or 8 years younger than the last student that I had. So he's in middle school, and the other one's in like high school. So it's so interesting to see how he's so motivated to change, you know, and taking emotional responsibility for himself. And before it was like he was playing victim to the world, you know, like he had gave up on life almost in a way and was playing victim to the people and characters and the people around him who just wouldn't do what he wanted them to do, you know, kind of like this sacrificial love that he had. And he's a father club, so it's kind of like almost expected, right? And then he has a nice faith. So it's like if he just gave up on life at one point. So he had this reflection. He was like, "Yeah, I found this like this newfound joy." He didn't say it literally, but he found this newfound joy in his self love for himself and his life. You know, because he had thoughts of like death and all of those things. And he was like, and he texted me. He was like, "I got it. Like I finally figured it out." He was like all excited, you know. So I had
That's
the
so
conversation.
cool.
So I had the conversation. He's like, "Yeah, like I'm not scared. I'm not afraid of death anymore." I was like, "Wow." You know, this is a 13, 12-year old kid. He's like, "I'm not afraid of death anymore." And it was just like this profound conversation about self love and about the love of his life and death, you know. And I was like, what is it about the Five of Clubs and what gave him that insight? And he conquered his Pluto, the Nine of Spades, you know, fear, um, self-loathing, you know, even, and then this attachment to other people, you know, to like this universal concept of putting in the work and helping other people. So I thought it was like, I was like, dang, I'm really proud of this kid. So I had to let him know, like, I'm really proud of you, you know. So it's like, I think me being there emotionally, because sometimes like it's so weird being with these kids. They admittedly like, oh, I don't have a dad. You know, like Rashad, you're my dad. I'm like, oh my gosh, like when did I adopt these kids? But
That
I
King of
guess
Hearts is on you, man.
right, it is, it is. And I actually have a king of space and shit, and Mercury and Jupiter, I think, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, so it's
So
like
that's
I'm like
such good
this
father
father
figure
figure.
stuff you got flowing in.
Right. Been there, and so and then I look at his card for the day. He had the Ace of Spades. I was like, wow, you know, like for him to make that connection with my, and I have the Ace of Spades Mercury, and for him to like really be excited to tell me uh, his story about his self realization of what loving himself. He was like, yeah, I can't really help anyone else. I can't really have a girlfriend and give her all these things, and then I'm gonna end up with nothing. I was like, oh my god. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna deplete myself. I was like, no, you are like, right. If you keep that attitude, like you are so ahead of the game. And here they are thinking this kid has like mental health issues, you know. So it's um, like it was the self realization and the fact that I was like very proud. You know, I had to make sure I was a reflection of how happy I was for them because, like I said, like these kids really don't have that connection with their parents. You know, some of them, and it's really interesting to see it from a parental point of view. And I don't have kids, but but yeah, so I can see like the attachment is like I was I was reading about it. Maybe it was the with, I don't want to say it, man, but it's a particular massage girl that we're in right now, because their Pisces season starts on the 18th. But it's about this love that you have, this unconditional and unattached love that you have for others, but knowing that still understanding that it can't be too sacrificial because it can end up being that way, you know. So yeah, it was just a moment I think around like the Queen of Hearts and having this emotional attachment, and actually caring for other people and seeing their emotional development and mental development, and just kind of being so yeah, that's kind of like in a story form,
I
how
like it.
I see how the Queen of Hearts can kind of take effect and make you realize the emotional effect that you have on other people, because it's like he had this self realization, but I know that it was also me making him question himself, asking the right questions, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
not forcing him to change, but just opening up his mind to inspires change, you know.
Nice, good approach. I like how you handled that. That's a great story, Rashawn. Thanks. I like the way that you talked about how love can be this sacrifice model. And of course, if we don't have good feelings about ourselves, I mean, I think everybody must know this. And if you don't, then, correct me if it feels different. But it's like if there's anything not okay inside of us, it's going to get projected into the relationships with ourselves, with other people. Right. So that's kind of how we end up seeing what's disowned or what needs attention. So I think that's where we get to learn about ourselves. So to recognize that to come from love, your own love, self compassion, to love yourself means that you're going to be more loving to everything. And I can't deny that stuff about the twins. I think that's why they're so well received because they're quite compassionate. They're very tuned in. They're just not over givers. They're just not sacrificers. They're definitely present if you call to them, but they're not like running after people's needs by anything like that. Like more of Jack. Like they're definitely sitting like queens. They don't get too caught up in it and they see it usually pretty clear. But I know many of their friends are friends with them because of their compassion and the way they'll ask questions and be curious about somebody and stuff like that. So I think that when we're in a loving place with ourselves, we can be more curious. And when we're trying to make sure we're okay or trying to get approval or that kind of stuff, then it gets a little gross. What do you
Yeah,
think, Adam?
the Queen of Hearts has a healthy sense of not overextending themselves because they're very much about their own sense of value. And the Five of Clubs can sometimes have that where they do overextend themselves because they're on the King of Hearts path and they really have the Five of the Clubs that I know of. They have the biggest hearts, and the Five of Clubs is generally wanting to connect to people, and it's very much community oriented. That Five of Clubs, that energy, right, of connecting to people and intellectual connections with people, and they can also have a hard time expressing themselves, and they're actually generally very blessed with resources, with money. So it's interesting that they have also a keen eye on their resources, what you were saying about getting whatever. So I just love them. I They have the biggest hearts, the Five of Clubs people, and it's interesting with the Queen of Hearts week, which is what right now, Ceres, which is the asteroid which rules nurturing and the mother and caretaking, is actually opposite of the new moon in Aries. So, which kind of ties into, I guess, the Queen of Hearts, which I don't normally keep track of what week it is, but it makes sense because Ceres is all about really nurturing and the home life, and then the new moon in Aries is about starting new projects, and it's that, I guess, balancing of taking care of yourself and security and stability versus starting something new and having your own independence. So I guess that's kind of like the themes this week. Really taking care of yourself and not overextending yourself, and that Queen of Hearts has that kind of healthy balance, you know. Well, generally, I mean, they can be very much either self-indulgent or overgiving of themselves, right? But there's they generally are like in the middle. So yeah, I just thought that was, and also they're a lot of them are attracted to the arts. My brother, he's in the movie industry, so he's always done he's always worked on movie sets and that sort of thing, and that's what he's always attracted to. So I just found that kind of interesting with the Queen of Hearts.
Interesting. Yeah. Huh. Well, I mean, I like the idea that we're coming more into that ability to be in balance. Like that really resonates for me. And I also think of the love of the mother. And to me, one of the things that I've studied for a long time, as you all know, is trees. And there's these great people called the tree whisperers. And he made a video that he's an older guy, 70s, 80s. He's a botanist. And he's doing a reboot with the trees and like sending healing to the trees and asking people to all come in and learn how to like connect to the trees to kind of spark them from the inner system, like suggesting that there's inner system blocks inside the trees as there are inside of us. And that our healing for the trees will help, support all things coming back into balance. So that love of the earth and that real connection, because to me, the emotions come up in those concepts of disconnection or abandonment or no one's going to love me or my dad wasn't here, so I must not be cool or that kind of stuff. When we think of the earth as the mother and the sky as the father and like that whole oneness thing, it doesn't really allow those concepts to take the grip that they can to the character, because you start to recognize that that's a storyline, like that's an imprint, right? That's a story of separation. And I think all the stories of separation and division are starting to kind of get revealed to be something that was set up, or we created, however we want to talk about it, that allows us to feel safe separate instead of in the recognition of the fact that we're connected, and that in compassion we grow smarter, and that when we separate and judge we actually grow limited. But again, I'm always singing from that place. I can't deny my same old imprints, but that's how it sits in my heart. Hey, Nick, see you coming in. Welcome up when you want. So I'll just say that we do this on Tuesday nights. We're following the weeks and letting the conversation go where it goes. I just realized when you were talking, Adam, how much you know about astrology, and I've been listening, and I don't have the replay back to say it as intelligently as I heard you now mention some of those planets that they brought up. There's some significant invitations from what I'm hearing astrologically for us to become like able to really end and begin again. And a lot of the language I heard is don't get stuck on the, oh, I don't want it to happen again. Like almost start to trust that it can be different, and how hard it is to trust. Kind of like when you were in love with an addict and they tell you they're different, but it's so hard to trust that they're different, because almost all of us have to become more accountable now to where we were, you know, instant gratification, maybe just letting people do what they wanted or not saying anything or whatever stuff people were doing to kind of coast. that accountability call is like knocking on the door for the ability to do it differently and really recognize how powerful we are in creating consciousness that lets us evolve. So those are the sort of things I heard. But tell us more about the astrological stuff, because I'm for sure open to the way it imprints us.
Yeah, well, it's just interesting that it's the Queen of Hearts week, and then we have this really one of the biggest asteroids series, which represents the mother nurturing the home life, your emotions, and that's a big theme. That's and anytime there's a new moon right on the spring equinox, it's like something big is about to happen. So it's something with that's related to the home life. And the only thing that I can see when I was looking at the USA chart was that it was squaring Venus. I think where is Venus? Which is obviously the resources and the money, and that's actually in Cancer, in the home life, in the eighth house of which is resources and shared resources and that sort of thing. So um yeah, it's the new moons are obviously new beginnings, and then when you have anything opposite, there's going to be either taking initiative on something starting new versus really your responsibilities with what that planet represents. So I think it's just more about really taking care of managing both, right? Having that balance between taking care of the home life and the home domestic duties, or whatever projects that you have on, and then starting something new, really trying to work with the two. So that's all I can see as far as what that means. But also your responsibilities to women too, right? The Queen of Hearts. It
Interesting.
being responsible and taking care of the women, and also kind of being a little bit kinder to people at work. And I mean, we all have this challenge. I can definitely relate to this challenge because I don't have any bedside manners at all. Sometimes I get caught up in the routine of work, and I'm like, all right, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Like quit crying, pull your bootstraps up, let's get this done, and blah blah blah. And sometimes you need a gentler approach to things because people can be going through things that we don't understand. We don't know what people are going through. So I guess having more empathy and compassion for people, right?
Oh,
So,
for sure. I found today's a lady told me a story about, I guess her son's like 4 or 5, and he woke up in a really bad mood. And she was mad at him for being in a bad mood and told him to stay in your room until you can get in a better mood. And I was like, gosh, that's so interesting. And, you know, I listen and listen. But for today, when she said that, I felt so much compassion for that little kid kind of just waking up from the family's emotional soup, not even probably knowing what's his and not his, waking up in his own mood, whether it's he was hungry or something happened. And because of our own, you know, internal kind of obsession, like this particular person was a queen of clubs who I was talking to, she starts like yelling at him because he's making her day harder. And I turned it after a little while, I listened, I said, wow, I wonder what would have happened if you said, oh, so what's going on, like what are you noticing, like what do you feel? And her face was like, what? Like I said, I know no one ever said that to us. I understand that for you it might feel weird, but gosh, that's a young person trying to figure out how to manage what's running through. So being curious and just asking him, he might tell you a bunch of stuff, like he might put into words but no one else can express because he doesn't have anything blocking the clarity of what he's noticing. So I think it runs into that whole idea of staying compassionate to the other person's experience, not getting lost in it, and by no means trying to control it. And I think sometimes mothers can feel like they're controlling people and people can resist the control. I think it's really about being curious about what's going on with you. Like, what's happening? Where do you notice it? What do you feel? But I do know, I mean, I know I'm going in my circle a little bit, that when we do that, sometimes people can use it to be manipulative and kind of like overextend, their emotion into a place where they're changing your mind about something. So that's where we have to stay sovereign ourselves. But I just really was extra compassionate to the stories today. So as we're talking about the Queen of Hearts and the energy, and I have a 4 of clubs in my 52 and a 4 of clubs today, and I'm in an 8 of spades year. So for some reason, my compassion was on high. I actually even ran into one of my, eights that I have a dynamics with today. She drove by my house. We ran into each other, and I just noticed a softening in my looking at her even. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I feel really less guarded today than I usually do. So I'm wondering if that energy's in the week as well.
Definitely. I mean, for me, I know in my progressions, my son just went into Aquarius, so I'm very detached, and the routine of work is starting to get to me where if I don't be able to really tap into my creativity and have that outlet, the whole monotony of work starts to get on my nerves, and I start to get very short attention, uh, s- um, little patience with people. And I know I'm not trying, and I'm really, it's like for me, I really have to remember, tell myself over and over again, like, let it go, let it go, let it go. And like, really kind of not get caught up in the routine, to have more compassion with people and being able to really connect to people emotionally. So that's kind of my challenge really this week, because normally I'm not really emotional with people that I don't know. I'm very much with people I do know. They know who I am. I let them in. But when I'm at work, I'm very reserved, very detached. So this is definitely a challenge for me to really be more open and be more vulnerable and show my emotional side and be more nurturing to people and have more patience with people. So, and not also when people lose it emotionally, just give them the grace. Yeah, I know that sounds kind of
I like what you're saying. Are you able to be that for yourself? Like, are you able to treat yourself the way you're talking about wanting to treat people more?
yeah. When I start to like get hard on myself and I hear these negative thoughts, and I kind of check myself and realize like, okay, well, you don't have to be, I mean, Adam, you don't have to be so perfect, you just have to like give yourself like grace, and just that's kind of like, I guess that's what this new moon is. And new moon, for me and the Queen of Hearts week is really what it's telling me to be, is just be more open and more nurturing to people, and more nurturing to myself too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Hello, ladies. Hi, Gina. Hi, Deborah. How are you? We're working on Adam being more nurturing to himself and noticing if we feel more kind and nurturing in this Queen of Hearts week. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Adam, I don't mean to suggest we're working on you. I always hear you in process of knowing yourself. You are very 10 of clubs that way. You're very much to learn and know yourself. So no dissing, bro. But Gina, Deborah, you have anything to share? You want to pop in?
I'll just say that I'm definitely not more nurturing. I'm definitely more detached. I'm like, get away from me, everybody. So I feel like, it's Neptune, Neptune, so I'm a lot more cold. But I am very stressed out by my son right now, so I don't know if I'm a good candidate to even really speak about it. But I feel the coldness of Neptune. However, it's definitely an unconditional love, but it's just like, something I have to do right now for my son, which is kind of be that cold energy. But I feel you, Adam, because I'm an Aquarius. So I'm detached right now, and that could be why.
And your
Oh,
son is diamonds, right?
The Ace of Diamonds. Anyone want them? I'll send them to you.
Well, they have the they're very wise, and they have the biggest, I mean, they have a great attitude and perspective on life generally, and also very connecting to people emotionally, would you say?
There, yes, 100%, which is right now he just entered Venus with a two of diamonds, which is his challenging karma card. So, that's what I've been trying to teach him. Is that, when because he's also sitting Neptune, so there's a detachment as well,
Mm,
like that illusion between relationships and partnerships, and like literally today for hours we were talking about how the universe shows you mirrors, and the mirror's not good or bad, but it's just going to give you back what you give to people. And like literally it's funny because the first day that he went into Venus with that two of diamonds, he was like working on music because they're very musically inclined. And I think little baby's a two of diamonds, so he was like trying to do like a cover, and he got so pissed and punched the monitor and broke it, right? So then I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. He literally just entered Venus with that two of diamonds. And he's mirroring a lot of his relationships right now are, you know, are mirroring what he's giving out, um, mirroring him, but the relationships are so important to him. So there's this deep level of him wanting to, have these relationships, but and him just realizing now with the two of diamonds in Venus. So it's funny that you just asked that question, but that's kind of like, what's been going on these last few days. So right now with that Queen of Hearts, I'm just like, okay, you're stressing me out, and it's like it's more of like me pulling away with that coldness. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I think that makes sense because when you sense, like I was saying, like they're pretty discerning when I talked about the boys, and like I think there is a discernment that you don't want to get caught up in the emotions of the other because it sounds like he's having his own emotional acceptance of what he's doing and how he's behaving. Like you're giving him information that it might make sense, but then you have to like build it in and reframe and do it different, and that's a process. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a process. It's also Neptune also deals with, what's hidden and problems and also illness, and it's funny because he's been like, hitting his head a lot, even play fighting with friends, and hurting his head and hitting his head, but then him also being a three of spades, which is worrying about his health. You know what I mean? But him also asking a question like, what's hidden? Like there's something deeper here. What am I doing? Why am I doing these things? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
what his does he have very vivid dreams?
I think
Does he,
he used to. Yeah, he used to. If he does now, he doesn't really tell me, but he's definitely very spiritual, very, you know, uh in tune with what's going on. Um, very in tune, very in tune. He used to, but he has visions now. So his dreams are like, well, he's awake. Do you know what I mean? Like he has a lot of epiphanies, he has a lot of daydreams. He goes into these, daydreams, and tells me like the most extravagant, amazing stuff. He's super deep and in tune
hmm
that way. Yeah.
what does he have any planets in Scorpio or Aries?
Oh, let me look. I move my office around. Hold on 2 seconds. Let's see. Okay, he has yeah, he has his Mercury's in Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
Mars is in Scorpio.
Mm. Well, that could explain definitely.
No Aries.
And this is the first time you've seen him like act like violent.
Oh no, he's been violent since the day he was born. Oh my God, very aggressive energy.
Yeah, that Mars energy, the Mars, well, in the cards, truth, the Three of Clubs is like a very powerful Mars card. And then when you have the actual planet in that position, it creates like when they get mad, it's like an explosion. So he needs to be in some kind of either going to the gym or some kind of like martial arts or something to be able to release that tension. Because if they don't let it go, then the slightest thing they can just snap.
I
You know,
literally just said that. I literally just told my husband today, I'm like, he needs to be in the gym. And then, I was coming back from the store and he wanted to do something else. And I was like, I'm tired and you're not respecting me. So get out. And I made him get out of the car and he was like, okay, I'll walk home. And it's like a mile and a half. And I'm like, okay, bye. And I went home. And when he got home, he was like, I needed that. That felt so good.
he had to tire himself.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He's 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well, I mean, 16 is considered Jupiter maturation. So generally, when they reach this age, they will generally, I mean, the behavioral stuff will kind of tone down a bit, but he really needs to exert that physical energy because he's got a lot of it. So he needs to be either walking every day or, yeah, just to get that, because that energy, unless it's released, it's going to build up. Yeah. So, and then the slightest thing that can, tick him off, it can kind of like, yeah. So, but it's actually very great for research. They can use this energy to really transform themselves. They could be um, very great. They can enhance their intelligence, like really get smarter with this kind of energy because it's that club energy, research and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely the personality of Neptune. He really has that kindness and that sweet, forgiving, compassionate, self, but it can also be like, like Neptune hurricane winds. So, but yes, I think he's just really learning that now, and especially entering, into his Venus with that two of diamonds will help out a lot too. That's my mom, Andy. So I'm sure she has a lot to say.
Well,
But
I'm just listening because I wanted to hear about like Queen of Hearts since that's like been my, I don't know, what is it, Debbie, my 52 day. But yeah, I just like can concur with everything you're
she's
saying.
in Neptune with the Queen of Hearts right now. Yeah. But it's the Queen of Hearts week, right?
Yep, it is. Gina, I saw your mic go up before. You want to come in and speak anything about the Queen of Hearts week?
No, I was just gonna say he's 16, so he's a whole big asshole right now.
A whole big asshole.
um, and then what Adam was saying though is so spot on. Like being an ace in general, they need that physical activity. I have two aces, and my ace of spades specifically, my God, like please, like she's like, can I go to the gym? Yes, I will drop you off gladly. Please go get that energy out. Like she has to constantly. That's why basketball has been so good for her because they need somewhere to put that, and because they're a constant, a rebirth on a constant. When you think about that aces, the aces always being new. They need to be able to dead the energy into something so that they can have the newness. If not, it can really hold them. And my dad is an ace of diamonds too, and say like my dad needed that as well. So it's really important, I think, for those aces to be stimulated. They do need time to themselves. So that's one thing that I can completely respect for my kids is like, when they go into their rooms and they want to be, left alone, I'd never push them because I was like, shoot, please go in there, be quiet. But I realized that ace energy, it's like they need that time. They don't mind being by themselves. That's kind of a recharge for them as well. So giving him that space, but also like Adam was saying, they need that physical outlet for a lot of that energy that they need to kind of dead so that they can have that that fresh energy that is constantly always like chasing them, you know what I mean?
100%. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't know any. Generally, the Ace of Diamonds are so smart people and so wise beyond their age, right? They're kind of old souls, so this is just a phase for him, and he'll grow out of it. He'll be more into like research and more about money, making money. That will be his drive. So
Yeah, that's been his drive since he's been like, I don't know, since he could talk, it was about money, literally. Literally, right, Mom? Literally, since he could talk, it's been all about money. Which is cool, but I'm teaching him like your two of diamonds challenging karma card, like you need people. So you don't push people away because you're pushing everyone away. No one wants and they like to be alone, but they don't like to be alone in relationships or feel like they've pushed everyone away. So he's just now learning that, like I said, and I'm like, you need partnerships, especially if you want to make money. You have to learn where how everyone can win, and it's not just about you because it's always about Nick. It's always about Nick. It's always about Nick, and I'm like, I'm tired. I want to go home, and he's like, well, I want to do it, and I'm just like, get out of my car, get out.
what's
I
his
can't.
what's his design in human design? Is he a manifester? Do you
Yeah,
know?
he's like a manifesting generator or something. I'd have to go back and check, but I'm a manifesting generator. He's a manifesting generator. He's my Mars card. So yeah.
Yeah, because the manifestors generally they don't like to be around a lot of people too. So but that could be also an Ace of Diamonds thing as well.
Well, he likes to be around people. I wouldn't say a lot of people because when he's around a lot of people, he gets real anxious.
Overwhelmed. He's overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah, overwhelmed, but he always wants to be out doing things, talking with people, but like more of like one-on-one. If there's two people, which makes him three, that's still too much. It's almost like he's got to be the center of attention, obviously with that ace. And then so yeah, he likes to talk to people, loves people, but it can't be look at my mom is like, "Oh my God," right? But yeah.
Well, that's also one of the environments with the in human design. Like for me, mine is a blended cave, which means I get to control people who come in and out, and it's very much like they're not like other people who are like I can handle a few people but not a lot, so I guess it's kind of the environments are actually kind of interesting because it tells like how they approach partnerships and friendships and that sort of thing, so what they feel comfortable with. So you have to let him do what's comfortable for him, but also like I get what you're saying about pushing him to have more friendships and that sort of thing. I mean, you're just being a mom, so you'll figure it out, and he will too, and so this is once he gets the physical side down under control, then I feel like all the behavioral stuff will go in line. So.
Yeah, you're right. And his therapist said, he has to be working out at least 4 times a week, at least for 30 minutes, like a lot of, and then the days he's not working out, he still should be walking or doing something for at least 30 minutes. He's like, he needs to really be working out for his mental health. And that's what he said. He came home and he goes, you know what? He was talking to my husband and he's like, you know what? I'm going to walk a mile every day for my mental health. It's literally what he just said.
I was watching this special, not this special, but this this TikTok video of this guy who was recording his wife creating treats for her dog, and she was creating like these kind of like blankets and these treats hidden into the blankets, and she was tying them into knots, and finally she had this like huge knot, and the dog was like sniffing through it and like trying to find all the treats, and the guy said that this is actually one of this whole sniffing is actually a mental exercise that really physically exerts them, and it's actually equivalent to them actually running outside. So maybe that's also a thing for him to do. Maybe puzzles or anything that can really take up his time mentally, that would kind of drain that energy, And so,
Yeah. Wow. Maybe I'll put his favorite snack and tie him all up in a million knots. I mean,
Be
he's
nice to do
like,
origami, remember?